It is a Tuesday afternoon in August. You're at the grocery store and there is a wall of cantaloupes stacked up near the front. 12 of them, all roughly the same size, all the same dusty tan green color. A sign says $3.99 each. You pick one up. You turn it over. You have no idea what you're looking for. You give it a sniff because somebody once told you a ripe melon smells sweet. But it smells like nothing. Cardboard. Dust. You pick the one that feels heaviest because that seems like it should mean something, put it in your cart, and take it home. Wednesday, you let it sit on the counter because somebody told you that helps. Thursday, you decide it is time. You cut it open and the inside is pale orange, almost yellow at the center. The flesh near the rind is hard and tasteless. The seeds are loose and watery. You eat a few bites because you already cut it, and the rest goes in the trash by the weekend. Here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. There is nothing wrong with you. There was never anything wrong with you. What happened is that a piece of knowledge that used to live in every kitchen in this country quietly disappeared somewhere around the time grocery stores got big enough that nobody needed to ask the farmer directly anymore. Every farmer's wife who ever ran a roadside stand could walk down a row of cantaloupes and tell you in about 10 seconds which ones were going to be sweet and which ones were going to be a waste of money. Not because she had some special gift, because she knew 6 things to check. 6 small, free, simple things that take less time than reading the price sticker. I am going to walk you through all 6 today. The stem scar, the smell, the netting, the color underneath, the give at the blossom end, and the sound. By the time we are done, you will be able to walk up to any pile of cantaloupes anywhere in this country and know which one to bring home. Test number 1. The stem scar. Look at the end of the cantaloupe where it was attached to the vine. This is the single most important test on this entire list, and almost nobody does it, because almost nobody even knows it exists. A cantaloupe that was allowed to ripen on the vine will eventually let go of the vine on its own. The plant pulls back, the connection weakens, and the melon separates cleanly, leaving behind a smooth, slightly indented dry scar. Farmers call this full slip. That clean, dry, slightly sunken scar is the mark of a melon that the vine itself decided was ready. A cantaloupe that was cut or pulled off the vine before it was ready will not have that clean scar. Instead, you will see a rough, torn stub of stem still attached, or a jagged, uneven tear where the stem was forcibly removed. That melon was picked on the farmer's schedule, not the plant's schedule. It may still ripen a little on your counter, but it will never develop the sugar content it would have if it had finished its job on the vine. Walk down the pile and look at every stem end before you pick anything up. You're looking for a clean, smooth, slightly hollowed-out scar with no rough stem stub attached. That is a full slip melon. That is the one that was allowed to finish. If every single melon in the pile has a rough torn stem, that tells you something about the entire shipment, not just one melon. It tells you the whole load was picked early for shipping durability rather than flavor. Keep that in mind. Sometimes the most useful thing this test tells you is whether to even bother with the rest of the pile. Test number 2. The smell. Turn the cantaloupe over and smell the blossom end. That is the end opposite the stem, the rounded end where the flower used to be before it became fruit. A ripe cantaloupe smells like a cantaloupe. That sounds obvious, but think about how many times you have picked one up at the store and smelled nothing at all. That absence of smell is information. It is telling you the sugars and aromatic compounds inside have not developed yet. A ripe one will have a noticeable sweet, slightly musky, almost floral smell right at that blossom end. You should not have to bury your nose in it. Hold it a few inches from your face, and you should be able to smell it without effort. If you have to press your nose directly against the rind, and inhale hard to detect anything. The melon is not ready. There is also a smell on the other end of the spectrum to watch for. If the blossom end smells overly sweet, almost fermented, like the smell you get from fruit that has been sitting in a bowl a day too long, that melon has gone past ripe into overripe. The sugars have started to break down. It will still be edible, but it will be soft, mushy, and will not keep more than a day. What you want is somewhere in the middle. A clear, sweet, fragrant smell that you can detect easily without straining, but not so strong that it smells like it is already starting to go. Test number 3. The netting. Look at the surface of the cantaloupe, the raised, tan, lacy pattern that covers the skin. This pattern is called netting, and it is one of the most overlooked clues on the entire melon. As a cantaloupe grows and ripens, that netting becomes more raised, more pronounced, and more textured. You should be able to feel distinct ridges and bumps under your fingers, almost like the surface of coral. A melon with thick, raised, coarse netting that you can really feel has had time to develop fully. A melon with netting that is flat, faint, or barely raised at all was picked early in its development, before that texture had a chance to form. Run your hand across the surface. If it feels almost smooth, with just a faint pattern you can barely detect by touch, set it back down. There is a second thing to look for in the netting, and this one surprises people. Look at the background color underneath the netting itself, in the gaps between the raised lines. On a ripe cantaloupe, that background color has shifted from green toward a warm tan, beige, or golden color. On an unripe one, you will still see green showing through between the netting lines. So you're doing two things with this test at once. Feel for raised, coarse, well-developed netting with your fingers, and look at the color showing through underneath it. Raised netting over a tan or golden background? Good. Smooth netting over a greenish background? Not yet. Test number 4. The color underneath. This test focuses specifically on the bottom of the melon, the spot where it was resting on the ground or on a pallet while it grew. Just like the field spot on a watermelon, a cantaloupe develops a resting spot. As the melon ripens, that spot shifts color. On an unripe cantaloupe, that spot will still be greenish or pale, the same general color as the rest of the unripe skin. On a ripe cantaloupe, that resting spot turns a deeper golden yellow, sometimes almost amber. The contrast between that spot and the rest of the rind becomes noticeable. You're looking for that warm golden tone on the underside, distinctly different and more yellow than the green-tan color on the top and sides. If the underside spot is still green or only slightly different from the rest of the melon, that cantaloupe spent less time finishing in the field than it needed to. The sugars simply did not have the time to build up to where they should be. This is a quick test. Tip the melon over, glance at the bottom, and you immediately know something important about how long that melon was allowed to sit and develop before it was picked. Test number 5. The give at the blossom end. Go back to that blossom end where you did the smell test. Now press it gently with your thumb, right at the very center where the flower scar is. A ripe cantaloupe will give just slightly under gentle pressure at that one specific spot. Not the whole melon, not the sides, just that small area at the blossom end. You should feel a small amount of softness, a slight yield, like pressing the pad of your thumb into the heel of your hand. The rest of the rind, everywhere else on the melon, should remain firm. If the entire melon feels soft all over, it has gone past ripe and is heading toward mushy and overripe. If that blossom end is rock hard with absolutely no give at all, no matter how gently you press, the melon needs more time. The internal structure has not started to soften and break down sugars the way it does as ripening completes. This is a small, precise test. A little give in one specific spot, with the rest of the melon staying firm. That combination is what you are after. Test number 6. The sound. Hold the cantaloupe in one hand. With the fingers of your other hand, give it a few firm taps, almost like knocking on a door, right in the middle of the melon. A ripe cantaloupe produces a solid, slightly hollow sound when you tap it. Not a deep boom like a ripe watermelon, but a fuller, rounder sound than an unripe one makes. An unripe cantaloupe produces a dull, flat, dense sound. The flesh inside is still tight and compact, and that density shows up in the sound. It almost sounds like tapping on something solid all the way through. An overripe cantaloupe will sound different again, often duller and more muted, sometimes with almost no resonance at all, because the structure inside has started to break down and soften. This test is the hardest one to describe in words and the easiest one to learn with practice. Tap 2 or 3 melons in a row, one after another, and you will start to hear the difference between them almost immediately. Your ear picks up the contrast faster than any description can explain it. Once you have heard a ripe one next to an unripe one, even just once, you will recognize that fuller sound again the next time you hear it. Now let's put all 6 of these together, because none of them by themselves tells you the whole story, but together they almost never lie. The stem scar. Clean, smooth, slightly hollowed, no rough stub. That tells you the vine let go on its own. The smell. A clear, sweet, fragrant smell at the blossom end that you can detect without straining, but not an overpowering or fermented smell. The netting. Raised, coarse, well-developed ridges you can feel with your fingers, over a tan or golden background color rather than green. The color underneath. A warm golden or amber resting spot on the bottom, distinctly different from the rest of the rind. The give. A small amount of softness right at the blossom end, with the rest of the melon staying firm. The sound. A full, slightly hollow tap, not a dull, dense thud, and not a muted, soft sound. A cantaloupe that passes all 6 of these tests is going to be deep orange inside, dense, sweet, and juicy from the rind all the way to the center. A cantaloupe that fails most of these tests is the one that ends up half-eaten and the rest in the trash. The same way it has been happening in kitchens across this country for decades now. Here is the thing about why this knowledge faded. A grocery store does not benefit from you knowing how to pick the best melon in the pile. If you know how to pick the best one, you leave the worst ones behind, and somebody has to sell those eventually, usually at the same price as the good ones. There is no sign in the produce section explaining the stem scar, or the netting, or the resting spot, because that sign would cost the store money. So this knowledge stayed in farm families, passed from one generation to the next, at roadside stands and farmers' markets, while everybody else in the country slowly forgot it existed. You do not have to keep guessing. The vine, the sun, and the soil already did the work of telling you which melon is ready. All 6 of these signs are sitting right there on the outside of every cantaloupe in that pile, waiting for somebody to actually look. This week, the next time you're near a pile of cantaloupes, take the extra 90 seconds. Check the stem. Smell the blossom end. Feel the netting. Look at the resting spot. Press gently at the bottom. Give it a tap and listen. Pick the one that passes the most tests, not the one that just feels heaviest in your hand. Cut it open for your family and let them taste what a properly ripened cantaloupe is actually supposed to taste like. Once they have had that, they will start asking you to do the tests every time you go to the store, and pretty soon they will be doing them right alongside you. Tell me in the comments which of these 6 tests you had never heard of before. The stem scar surprises most people. The netting surprises almost everyone. And if your mother or grandmother had her own way of picking a melon, something she always did that nobody ever explained, share it below. Those small family habits are exactly the kind of thing that gets lost when nobody writes it down. Next time, we will stay in the produce aisle and talk about something almost everybody gets wrong with tomatoes, the one sign that tells you whether a tomato was ripened on the vine or ripened in a truck, and why that single difference changes everything about how it tastes. Until then, remember the smooth scar, the golden netting, the warm spot underneath. The vine and the sun already wrote the answer on the outside of every melon. All you have to do is learn how to read it.